I don't want to die. Sure, I know there's a hereafter and life goes on even once your body stops working. And I know sometimes I might say I wish I were dead or think about dropping my dad's little transistor radio in the bathtub with me, but I don't mean those things. Besides, the radio got destroyed when our house collapsed. Living is hard, especially when it seems like everyone and their brother wants to kill you. But I know in many ways I have things easier than a lot of people. I have foster parents who care for me in their own weird, eggy waffle way. I have friends who watch out for me, even though my one last living friend maybe isn't a friend anymore since I punched him in the face. Sorry, Jamal. There are people out there who don't have those things, and they still get up and face each day and try to survive. How can I do any less?
Well, I'm happy you're not giving up,
says Roger in his weird tone. He dabs at my mouth with his sleeve. It comes back bloody. Was I talking aloud?
Yes, you were,
shouts someone. I crane my neck to look around. There's a guy sitting on the ground with his knees up and he's holding a gun. I think I've seen him before. Where have I seen him before? Guthrie. He works with Detective Guthrie. I've seen him sitting at a desk at the police station. I never talked to him before, but he's definitely a police person.
That's good,
Roger says, rocking me slowly in his arms.
That's good. You remember Mr. Frank.
Was I talking out loud again? Mr. Frank puts his hands to his mouth like a megaphone.
You still are,
he calls over. Next to him comes a snarling sound in another voice, high-pitched and screeching. Oh, it's Tony and the child stabber. Tony Flowers, and there's a doggy biting him. It looks sick or injured because it's got blood all over it. Maybe it's Tony's blood.
No, that's one of those blood dogs from David Clark's house,
Roger says matter-of-factly. I blink and squint at the dog as it growls and shakes Tony. He punches the dog weakly with his free hand. It growls angrily, and from the sound of his shrieking, it clamps down harder on his arm. Oh yeah, that's one of those dogs that used to be Mrs. Donovan. Mr. Frank gets up, dusting his pants off, and walks over toward...
Can you stop?
He asks, looking down at me.
Yes, I'm looking down at you. Stop narrating everything.
I don't know how, I say. I think my brain is broken or something. Roger starts rocking me again. It hurts when he does that. He stops and says he's sorry. My poor Lily bird, he whispers. I side-eye him because he's acting really weird. I think Roger's brain is broken too.
That's not Roger,
Mr. Frank says.
I'm Roger. That's Meredith. In my body. Because I'm in this guy's body. It's a long story. Right now we need to know what the hell is going on. Who is this guy, Tony Flowers, and why did he say you need to die? Is it because of the demon you've got in there? Did it get out? Where is it?
Meredith? I look up at Roger's face. He smiles at me. I suck my head into my turtle shell. His smile fades. Sorry, it's just weird seeing Roger smile.
Kiss my ass,
Mr. Frank says.
Damn it, I'm not Mr. Frank. Stop calling me Mr. Frank. I'm Roger. That's Meredith. And will you please stop saying everything you're thinking?
I'll try. I focus on not saying this thought. I look at Roger, the actual Roger, the one in Mr. Frank's body. He's looking at me but not getting angry. Is it working? Am I not saying this? He narrows his eyes.
You're thinking about saying something, aren't you?
I think it works now. He rolls his eyes and turns away, walking over to where Mrs. Donovan and the bloodhound is tearing at Tony's arm like it's a Thanksgiving turkey leg. I guess it could be any turkey leg. Thanksgiving turkeys are just turkeys. They aren't special just because of the day you eat them on. Meredith pets my hair gently. It reminds me of when my mom used to pet my head. I love head pets. Back in elementary school, every now and then this blonde lady would come into our classroom and our teacher would tell us to get out our pencils and leave them on the front of our desks. And then the blonde lady would come by each desk and take the pencil and comb it through her hair. I remember she smelled very nice, like lavender popsicles. I told my mom about the nice lady and she laughed at me and told me the lady was checking us for lice. I didn't care. It felt nice. And I never had lice, so it was a treat.
Lily?
Meredith says in Roger's voice. Yeah?
Please don't leave me again. You left me at that crazy house with David Clark and his mom. I tried to go after you, but you were gone. Why did you leave me behind?
I may have been a little possessed by a demon. I look up at him. I'm sorry. He hugs me around the neck. I feel something tear down around my middle and it gets hot and painful again. I groan. Please, stop hugging me. It hurts. She stops.
Where?
Around the big, bloody spot. I feel Roger's heavy hand pressing down on my abdomen and the screaming pain picks up for a couple seconds before it sort of muffles down to a dull, angry pain instead. That's good. Keep pushing on it, please. It hurts less when you press on it. Roger and Mr. Frank walks back over.
Reunion time is over. We gotta get out of here.
Meredith lays my head down in the dirt and stands up. With her not pushing on my wound, the pain comes back.
We need to take her to a hospital. She's going to bleed to death. No!
Comes an angry shout.
She has to die. She has to pay for what she did to my sister.
I turn my head to look at Tony. He seems to have given up on getting Mrs. Doggy Van off of him and is just laying there with his arm dangling out of her mouth. He's staring at me and Meredith with spinning eyeballs like a cartoon hypnotist. He's also foaming at the mouth like Old Yeller and spraying the air with spit as he yells about how I killed his sister over and over again. I actually did die, I sputter, doing my own spit spraying and getting blood up my left nostril as a result. I was just dead a moment ago. Death himself told me to my face. I try to blow the blood out of my nose with a hard snort, but end up just sucking it up instead. I can taste it mixed with a booger on the back of my tongue. Ugh, bloody snot. Suddenly, the whole area gets flooded with the bright yellow of a car's headlights as one pulls into the gas station parking lot. It sits there for a minute, just chugging quietly and blinding us with its headlights. I can't make out the type of car or who's behind the wheel. Eventually, the door opens and a pair of legs step out in black slacks and a big brown trench coat. It's Detective Guthrie. He looks like he's either confused, surprised, or angry. Maybe a mix of all three. Normally, he just looks annoyed when he shows up wherever I am. Guthrie pulls a gun out of his trench coat. I wonder how many others he's got in there. It looks big enough to carry a ton of small guns or maybe a couple shotguns. I want to see him pull a bazooka out, but I know that's not going to happen.
What the hell is going on here?
He says in that kind of tone an adult uses when they walk in on you making breakfast for them on Father's Day using a recipe you found in an old cookbook your mother kept on top of the shelf in the pantry and you had to climb the shelves to get it and knocked everything over as a result but told yourself you'd clean it up after. Nobody says anything. The dog snarls and thrashes her head around, trying to kill Tony's arm. Guthrie eyes it warily. The next moment, he squints at Roger.
Frank? I found your car back at the hotel. There's blood everywhere. Jeez, what happened to you?
Meredith and I turn and look at Roger and Mr. Frank's body. Turning my head is about all I can do, it seems. Roger makes an oh kind of face and touches his neck, sticking his fingers into this giant bloody gash he's got as if he forgot it was there.
It's not as bad as it looks. I'll live.
Guthrie gives Mr. Frank a concerned look. He walks over to me, keeping his gun trained on Tony and the blood-covered dog. Pretty soon his face is looming over mine. He glances at Meredith and she crouches beside him and starts pressing on my bleedy spot again.
That's good. Keep pressuring that whatever it is,
he tells her.
I've called for medical services and backup.
He looks down at me. I cough and accidentally get some of my blood in his face as well as mine. He just calmly closes his eyes, wipes it off, and then moves a little further away from me.
You're gonna be okay, Lily. Just hang in there.
I died, I tell him. He nods.
Okay.
How did you find us? Meredith asks, her face full of tears. She's been crying silently over me. It's so weird to see Roger's face all puffy and red and wet from crying and hear him speaking so softly. It's like I could hear Meredith's voice underneath Roger's. Guthrie leans back and blinks.
I don't know, really. I was at the hotel and this voice in my head told me to get in my car and just start driving. So I did. I just started driving. And then that same voice seemed to guide me, telling me when to turn, until the next thing I knew, I was pulling in here.
He looks down at me. I can see in his eyes something I haven't seen in a while. Awe. That's what it is. It's awe. Like he can't believe what he's telling me. No, like he absolutely can believe what he's telling me, and it scares him.
It was like an invisible hand holding mine and turning the wheel, leading me here. I didn't fight it. I just let it do its thing.
The angels guided you, I whisper. Meredith nods silently and wipes her tears.
Ah, for Pete's sake,
Roger mutters. Guthrie takes off his big coat. There are no extra guns underneath, just his shirt and suspenders. I'm disappointed that he's not armed to the teeth, but then he drapes the coat over me like a blanket and pets me, and I forgive him for not being covered in guns.
Don't fall asleep,
he tells me. I think covering me with your coat like a blanket and petting my head are counterproductive to trying to keep me awake, but I'm too tired to tell him this. He looks at Meredith. I wonder if he realizes whose face he's looking at. My dead brother's.
Stay with her,
he tells her. I can feel my eyelids. Feeling them makes you realize how normal it is not to feel them. Like nobody goes around thinking about their eyelids until their eyelids make themselves known. Mine are definitely trying to get my attention. What do you want, eyelids? We want to go down, say my upper eyelids. And we want to go up, says my lower eyelids. And then we want to meet in the middle, they say in chorus. Fine. I let them cover my eyeballs and focus on the sounds around me. I hear Guthrie walking away, his feet crunching on the ground. I hear the dog snarling and thrashing its head every few seconds. I hear Meredith breathing over me and lightly humming some sort of song. I don't know what it is. It sounds like a lullaby.
What's wrong with this dog?
Guthrie asks.
Is it injured?
Tony screeches, Get it off me! There's some sort of scuffing sound, and then the dog starts barking angrily. I hear grunts from one of the adults, and then suddenly there's a loud bang that startles me so bad my eyes flutter open. It startles Meredith too, who leans too far in and presses extra hard on my tummy wound. I can feel stuff inside me squish and shift, and it hurts something fierce. Over at the adults, Guthrie stands by Tony and the dog. The dog is lying on its side and not moving. Guthrie has his gun pointed at it. A wisp of smoke is trailing from the barrel. He just shot Mrs. Donovan. He doesn't even know it. I could have saved her. I could have made her whole again. I don't know how, but I would have taken care of her until I could figure it out. Of course, there was another dog, and I don't know where it went or if it's alive or dead. I probably needed both dogs to fix her. It's too late now, though. Rest in peace, Mrs. Donovan. Thank you for saving me. Together with Roger, Detective Guthrie flips Tony onto his back and handcuffs him, where he just lays there and every now and then cries and bangs his head on the ground. Guthrie then turns to Roger.
Let me see your neck, Frank.
Look, about that, Roger puts his hands up to keep Guthrie at bay. Before they can argue about whether or not Frank Roger should be able to stand up and walk around, let alone talk and breathe, the red lights of an ambulance join the fray. 2 ambulance people jump out, a man and a woman, each carrying some sort of small lunchbox, and jog over to our little gathering. The lady EMT comes over to me. She smells like antiseptic. I don't mind. I'm too woozy to object to people's smells right now.
Let me see that,
she says, moving Meredith's hands, followed by,
Bruce, we're going to need a pack here, heavy blood loss. You got it,
the other EMT person says, dashing back to the ambulance and returning a moment later with a big plastic sandwich bag filled with blood. It looks juicy and makes me realize how thirsty I am. The sloshing sound it makes reminds me of a slushie. Cherry slushy. Nobody seems to hear me. Guthrie forgets what he was about to say to Roger and shuffles back to his car to talk on the radio some more. He's probably wondering where his backup is. Not that he needs them now. Tony is restrained, the dog is dead, the ambulance is here, and I'm going to live. At least I think I am. I guess I could still die. Except I think that moment came and went. If I fall asleep, will Duma still be there waiting for me? I wonder how annoyed he is that I didn't stick around. Guthrie comes back from the car and tucks something soft under my arm.
I thought you might want this. You left it back at the hotel.
It's a little blue cat doll with its pink felt tongue sticking out and cracked plastic eyes. Freddie Lapel. I whisper and squeeze it, but my arms don't work so well. He feels damp, I say to Meredith, who smiles quietly. Moments later, I've got a little needle in my arm and the baggie of blood is connected to it. The EMTs are lifting me onto their ambulance trolley thing. Meredith is standing beside me, refusing to let go of my hand.
It's called a stretcher,
the male EMT says. He furrows his brow at me after telling me this, and then looks with concern at his partner. She shrugs. Guthrie stands nearby, holding on to Tony as he leads him toward his car.
Why is she doing that?
He asks the ambulance pair. I wonder what he's talking about. Meredith pats my head.
You're narrating again,
she says. Oh, sorry. I try to focus on keeping my thoughts in my brain.
Try harder!
Roger calls from over by the dead dog. He stares down at it forlornly and,
harder!
He yells. Anthony, I say, getting my stabber's attention. He looks at me and I see the hatred.
Harder!
The hatred burning in his eyes. There's nothing else there. It's overwhelming him. He's like this kid I once knew named Gordon Tunso who got hit in the head with one of those hard foam floaties at the pool and nobody realized it had knocked him out because floaties are hard, but they're just foam. So you wouldn't think they'd be enough to clock a kid, but they are. Anyway, Gordon got knocked out and then he floated there face down in the pool and everybody thought he was just pretending, but he actually wasn't. The lifeguard pulled him out and got him breathing again, but an hour later when he was home watching TV, he drowned. They called it dry drowning, which is scary to think about because you don't imagine that you could drown while not in the water, but apparently you can.
Is that a true story?
Detective Guthrie asks. Everybody's looking at me and each other and just seems genuinely confused, except for Roger, who just sighs and goes back to staring at the dead dog. The lady ambulance person nods at Guthrie.
Yeah, it's rare, but it can happen.
I clench my mouth shut for a moment to keep any more thoughts from spilling out. After a few seconds of mumbling through my lips, I get my brain back under control. Tony? I croak his name again. I just want you to know. I forgive you.
You forgive me?
He scoffs. He opens his mouth as if to call me a demon horse again or something, and then shuts it with a clack of his teeth. I know you're hurting. When you love someone and they die, it leaves a hole in your heart. A metaphorical hole, not a real one. But it hurts just as much as if it were a real hole. And you want the hurt to stop. You think you can fix the hole by punishing whoever took your loved one away. So you go looking for someone to blame for why your sister or your son or your mom and dad died. And sometimes there is someone, but a lot of the time there isn't. The truth is sometimes bad stuff happens to people who don't deserve it, and there's nobody to blame. Meredith squeezes my hand. Your sister died trying to save me and my friend Meredith from a crazy man that was going to kidnap her. She was a hero, and I don't blame you for being mad that she's gone. But I didn't kill her. I think about telling him the other part where her ghost tried to get me to murder that same best friend that her living self had died trying to save, but I think that would just get confusing, and I don't really think he'd believe me, and honestly, I really prefer not thinking too much on how a burnt corpse almost got me to commit murder. Tony spits at me, but it falls way short because there's just no phlegm in it.
I hope you burn in hell,
he snarls as Guthrie sighs and shoves him into the back of his car. Hell is just a construct, I say. Meredith frowns.
What does that mean?
My brain feels like it's drifting into a fog bank. Did they stick me with something? I think the medical people stuck me with something. I don't know. Stupid angels said it, not me. What's wrong with my mouth? The stretcher jostles me as they wheel it into the ambulance. A needle full of painkillers. I think that's what they stuck me with. I feel the tearing in my tummy, but it's more of a tingling than a screaming, awful pain. I still clench up, though, just because I'm afraid it's going to hurt, since it has every other time. I grip Meredith's hand like a vice. A vise is this thing adults use to hold something in place while they do stuff like saw or hammer at it. My dad used to watch a show called Miami Vice that had these two guys in flashy jackets driving around some tropical place hunting for stuff to nail. I can feel it coming in there, Tane. I managed to slur to myself groggily. Shit. The male ambulance guy starts pulling Meredith away. No, come back, Mary. Our fingers cling to each other until we're just too far apart and my arm drops to the side. Can't I ride with her? She asks. Her eyes are big and wet and I can't watch Roger's body cry. It's just too weird, even if I know it's Meredith inside. I'll wiggle my toes instead. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Guthrie appears behind her and puts a heavy hand on her shoulder. Guthrie's a clown.
Who even are you?
He asks. Asses. He says. Meredith looks terrified of him. I want to tell her not to be scared, that he's just a big old kitty cat. Don't worry, this is just my cousin. Jeez, what did they give me? I'm just gonna shut up. Just shutting up.
You don't have a cousin.
Damn, he's a good defective. I'm... Mary's eyes dash back to me like little soccer balls. Panicked soccer balls. She leans over and barfs. Blah! Except it's not barf, it's like black smoke. Spills out of her mouth and nose. It pours right onto my chest and I close my mouth, which was hanging open so it don't go in my body. Guthrie watches, frowning.
Are you alright?
He asks. I'm sorry, do you not see the black smoke that just came out of her? It's all over me, you doof. You doofus. The smoke flows around, swirling, and then like a vacuum cleaner sucking it up, it gets slurped up by my stuffed kitty. Kitty, so pretty kitty named Freddy. Freddy Daddy, Freddy Dead-eyed Dick. Dick Tracy. The kitty twitches. Guthrie doesn't notice because he's too busy watching Roger's body suddenly slump back, head tilt up and collapse to the ground like a rag doll. Thwump! The female ambulance shouts, "Whoa!" as she watches it happen. She clambers off the truck and kneels down by Roger's empty body. What the hell happened? She prods his neck. I'm not getting a pulse here!
The hell did you do?
The other ambulance asks. Vulcan death grip. I giggle. Guthrie looks utterly shocked, like a milk cow rubbing against an electric fence. I didn't do anything! Now Roger and that other guy's body is standing beside him. Poof! He appears. Or maybe I blinked. I can't think straight. Blink, poof, there's Roger. He's got one eye and it looks tired, and the other one is drippy and wet and missing, I think? Someone is running out of it. The ambulance who isn't hovering over Roger's body takes a hard look at the other body that Roger's currently in, and his eyes get wide. His name is Pavel, and I bet he's going to tell all his ambulance buddies about this later over several beers at a place called Old Joe's Tavern. Oh, looky, the angel radio is working. Beam me up, Pasher. Pasher does not beam me up.
Joe, you were asking about my neck.
Roger says to Guthrie. His name's not Joe, I try to tell him. It's defective Gumby.
Look, whatever it is, can you, tell my wife and kids that I love them?
Guthrie looks at Roger like he just explained to him that potatoes are actually alien spy devices made to be consumed and send vital Earthling statistics back to their masters in preparation for the invasion. He manages to flip a basic,
"What?"
past his lips, followed by,
"Frank, what kids?"
"Oh."
Well, then that makes this easier.
Roger shrugs. He steps back, loosens his tie, except he's not wearing a tie, and then tilts his... Oh, he was pulling at neck, because of the big, gaping wound in it. I think you could see the insides of his throat, Or at least I could if it wasn't for the black smoke that starts billowing up out of his face and neck. I'm pretty sure Gumby doesn't see this. The smoke, that is. He's probably seeing inside Frank's neck. I'm just gonna take a little nap, I say. I hear Meredith's voice from the cat doll. Okay. Just before I drift off to sleep, though, I watch Frank's big adult body topple over backward like a sack full of wet laundry. His head cracks as it strikes the pavement. At the same instant, Roger's body lurches to life with a big gasp of breath that scares the living daylights out of the ambulance lady. She screeches and punches him in the face. Ow! Shit! He grabs his nose. Gumby does what Gumby does, which is just stand there looking dumbfounded and yells,
What the F is going on?
And then I go to sleepy sleep.
Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I want to tell you thank you so much for watching tonight's video. I want to give a huge thank you to everybody who supports me on Patreon. This past year has been rough. I've been gone for quite a while trying to get things organized for my own life, and Patreon subscribers, you guys who subscribe everywhere, this has kept me afloat in turbulent waters. So I want to give a very special thank you to Jordan Humble, Diana Kraus, Disciple, Strategy Wolf Emoji, SullyMan, Brandon Mendoza, BrimstonePandemonium, Caltuna, William Wellington, Scruffy the Janitor, Brenna, LaQueda Canizales, Smiley the Psychotic, Djenna, Dante Kinkade, SimbasBloodyMojo, Mephistopheles, CursepoxPrimarch, M, Jesus Cornejo, Yarghoul, VerbalHorror, Amber Clark, J. Kearns, Mike, himbojerry, CrusaderChocobo, Corbin Dallas, Estebean, Seclude, Salty Surprise, Red Shadowcat, Turtleman, Cryolinian, Mr. Marcus Blitz, Dirt Diver 030, Voice of Sand, Psychomel, Melted Lake, Tali Sue, William King, Sashi Suzaku, Croconut 509, Stricken, Freddy Krueger, Hades Nephew, Acid System, Sky Harbor, Nico Kyle, The Ginger Bros, Aaron Stormcrow, Daniel Polson, and Corey Kenshin. To all you guys and everybody who's included in the description down below, thank you so much for everything that you guys have done for me, and thank you so much for being here when times get difficult and I can't always be around to make content. I really appreciate your support, and I cannot thank you enough. And that goes to everybody who watches these videos, that goes to everybody who's subbed here, and anybody who has ever liked a creepypasta story ever. I wish you all the best. Sweet dreams.